Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappearance theories. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappeared on 8 March 2014, after departing from Kuala Lumpur for Beijing, with 227 passengers and 12 crew members on board. Malaysia's former Prime Minister, Najib Razak, stated that the aircraft's flight ended somewhere in the Indian Ocean, but no further explanation had been given. Despite searches finding debris considered with strong certainty to originate from the crash, official announcements were questioned by many critics, and several theories about the disappearance were proposed. Some of these theories were described as conspiracy theories. Background: victims' relatives questioned the veracity of the Malaysian government's statements about the demise of the aircraft, and organized a protest at the Malaysian embassy in Beijing with the goal of forcing the Malaysian government to reveal any withheld information about Flight 370's whereabouts. Rob Brotherton, a lecturer in psychology at Goldsmiths, University of London, wrote that conspiracy theories emerge immediately after any catastrophe occurs, and conclusive information about why they do so remains unavailable. Andrew Leonard wrote that conspiracy theorists were bolstered by the revelation of new satellite data 2 weeks after the flight disappeared that had been hidden from the public. Other factors involve the lack of a distress signal from the plane. According to Barbara Demick of the Los Angeles Times, critics of the Malaysian government's statements also found support in the Joint Agency Coordination Centre's announcement on 29 May 2014 that the plane was not in the search area authorities had been combing since. Searches discovered debris considered to originate from the crash with strong certainty. Criticism and response. Conspiracy-focused internet sites claim that the official statement that the plane crashed into the Indian Ocean is a blatant cover-up. They note that a Boeing 777 does not have the structural integrity to survive crashing into the ocean, and that it would be comparable to hitting a concrete wall at terminal velocity. If Flight 370 hit the ocean, they say it would have been broken into tens of thousands of pieces, many of which float on water such as the seat cushions, and would be seen washing up on regional shores or easily spotted by search teams. Those criticisms diminished after several pieces of the aircraft were positively identified in the years after its disappearance. Harvard professor Cass Sunstein noted that the conflicting information initially released by the Malaysian government explains the interest in alternative theories. Sunstein, who has written on the topic, argued in an interview with the Wall Street Journal on 20 March 2014 that conspiracy theories in general often are born out of horrific and disastrous situations because such events make people angry, fearful, and looking for a target. David Soucy, a former FAA inspector, has said that the theories that have been put forth in this matter are important when there is a lack of knowledge, as the theories and notions help us to consider various possibilities. On 26 March 2014, he stated on CNN in an accident investigation, "It's a critical part to come up with theories, especially right now when we don't have anything. We don't have anything tangible. We don't have something to say, hey, yes, because we don't know where that airplane is and we need to find out why. If you take one theory, the airplane would be where we are looking at right now. If you take another theory, where there was nefarious intent, they are trying to avoid radars, the airplane could be somewhere else. If you say it was whatever it is, you've got to use these theories, weigh them against the facts so you know which one to go to." Tim Black, deputy editor of Spiked, wrote, "The common hypothesis, cited also here, that Mate 370 avoided Indonesian radar is based only on a statement that the plane was not observed by Indonesia." Hijacking. The possibility of a simple hijacking has been brought up by various news outlets, including ABC News and the Los Angeles Times. Speculation has mounted about the possibility that hijackers took the plane to a remote island. Although no group has claimed responsibility, unofficial researchers have identified more than 600 possible runways at which the plane was capable of landing. No confirmation has been received from Malaysian officials. The credibility of several hijacking theories have become further marginalized following the discovery of the first definitive fragments of MH370 wreckage in July 2015. French air traffic specialists Jean-Marc Garot, Michel Delarche, and Jean-Luc Marchand launched a website with their hypothesis concerning a possible hijacking, with a subsequent location of the aircraft following an emergency ditching due to fuel exhaustion estimated at around 12:32 S-107-2248E in the Indian Ocean. However, the final report from the Australian Transport Safety Bureau ATS, released in 2017, examined the possibility of controlled glide/ditching and found it very unlikely. Also, their hypothesis concerning the location of the crashed plane different from the searched locations is not the only one that exists. Terrorist attack. Shortly after the aircraft disappeared, it was claimed that it may have been an act of terrorism, possibly a jihadist attack. Between 9 and 14 March 2014, media mogul Rupert Murdoch tweeted that Flight 370's disappearance confirms jihadists turning to make trouble for China's sake. He later suggested the flight might have been hidden in northern Pakistan, like bin Laden. These remarks have not been confirmed and were characterized as conspiracy theories by Shiv Malik in The Guardian. The following month, the Russian newspaper Moskovskij Komsomolets endorsed a similar theory, claiming that unknown terrorists had hijacked the plane, flown it to Afghanistan, and then held the crew and passengers hostage. North Korea. A story circulated on Reddit that MH370 had sufficient fuel to be hijacked to North Korea, as was done in 1969 with a Korean Airlines YS-11. Acquisition of Freescale staff. A variety of social media posts and email chain letters claim that a patent hash 8,671,381 was approved days after the disappearance of the MH370, and the right to the patent was split 5 ways: 20% to Freescale Semiconductor and 20% each to the patent deals with fabrication of integrated circuits on a semiconductor wafer. The urban myth website Snopes.com suggests that there is no evidence that the 4 inventors listed on the patent application were on the aircraft passenger list, nor that they were entitled to a 20% share of the patent, and it says it is unlikely that their share would revert to Freescale on their death as presented in the email. Diego Garcia. Phantom cell phone theory. Some had speculated that the passengers were still alive but could not answer their cell phones, sometimes known as the phantom cell phone theory. This was based on early reports that family members of Flight 370 passengers heard ringing as opposed to a busy/off signal while calling the passengers' phones, though this was after the disappearance. However, this was later challenged by Jeff Kagan, a wireless analyst, who in an email to NBC News explained that the network may still produce ringbacks as it searches for a connection, even if the cell phone has been destroyed. Crew suicide/hijacking. The cockpit had the mandated anti-hijacker fortified doors that could prevent locked-out crew or passengers from interfering with a suicide or hijacking into the Southern Ocean. This can be compared to Silk Air Flight 185, a posited pilot suicide incident in 1997, Egypt Air Flight 990 1999, LA and Mozambique Airlines Flight 470 2013, as well as the later Germanwings Flight 9530 2015. On 17 February 2014, less than 3 weeks before Flight 370 disappeared, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 702 had been hijacked when the co-pilot locked the captain out of the cabin and diverted the aircraft to seek asylum in Switzerland. Shortly after Flight 370's disappearance, media reports revealed that Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah's wife and 3 children moved out of his house the day before the disappearance, and a friend claimed that Captain Shah was seeing another woman, and Shah's relationship with her was also in trouble. Claims of domestic problems have been denied by Shah's family. A fellow pilot and longtime associate of Shah stated the captain was terribly upset that his marriage was falling apart. Police were also investigating reports that Shah received a 2-minute phone call prior to the flight's departure from an unidentified woman using a mobile phone number obtained with a false identity. Furthermore, Captain Shah was also a supporter of Malaysian opposition politician Anwar Ibrahim, who was sentenced to jail on 7 March after an earlier acquittal on sodomy charges was overturned in a move viewed as politically motivated. Investigators noted strange behavior by Shah from conducting 170 interviews, namely, that the captain had made no social or professional plans for after 8 March, when Flight 370 disappeared. However, according to the French journalist Florence Hijacking, who wrote a book about the flight, dismissing 100% of the official narrative, Shah made an appointment with his dentist to get back his tooth crown when the dentist phoned him a few days before 8 March. News reports about the captain's lack of social plans and flight simulator exercises cite results of the police inquiry into the pilots, which have been shared with some of the investigation team but have not been released publicly. However, news reports on 23 July 2014 stated that the police considered the possible culpability of all those on board the plane and identified the captain as the prime suspect if it is proven human intervention was involved. The United States Federal Bureau of Investigation reconstructed the deleted data from Captain Shah's home flight simulator. A Malaysian government spokesman indicated that nothing sinister had been found on it. However, the Sunday Times later reported that among deleted flight paths performed on the flight simulator, investigators found a flight path into the Southern Ocean, where a simulated landing was made on an island with a small runway. In 2016, a leaked American document stated, "This was later confirmed by the ATS, although it stressed that this did not prove the pilot's involvement, and by the Malaysian government." A book, Goodnight Malaysian 370, was published in August 2014 by New Zealanders Jeff Taylor and Ewan Wilson. The authors blamed a deliberate act of the pilot for the aircraft's disappearance, but admitted they were not able to provide any conclusive evidence to support his theory nor any motive. Ewan Wilson had previously dismissed the fire emergency theory as unlikely. New Zealand aviation expert Peter Clark stated that to take over the aircraft took immense knowledge, and that even the co-pilot would not have been sufficiently skilled to disable the communications system and reprogram a 7i. However, Clark admitted the theory would be difficult to prove even if the data recorders were found, because the voice recorders would likely have been overwritten, and because, if the pilot was in control of the aircraft, then instrument data would report no anomalies. Shah's family vehemently denied the possibility of pilot suicide. Former British Airways senior Boeing 777 pilot Simon Hardy told BBC News that the plane's route was probably very accurate flying rather than just a coincidence, and noted that the aircraft's turn toward the northwest over the Malacca Strait allowed a clear view of the captain's home island of Penang. Someone was looking at Penang. Someone was taking a long, emotional look at Penang. The captain was from the island of Penang. In May 2018, Simon Hardy also claimed on 60 Minutes Australia that the captain used the flight as a murder-suicide and had deliberately flown the plane over his hometown of Penang before turning right and ditching the plane over the Indian Ocean. He said they found these results by reconstructing the captain's flight plan from the military radar, and that the captain had avoided detection of the plane by military radar by flying along the border of Malaysia and Thailand, crossing in and out of each country's airspaces. Fire. Shoot-down hypothesis. American political commentator Rush Limbaugh, according to CNN, speculated that the aircraft may have been shot down. Supporters of this theory have noted that civilian aircraft have been shot down by military forces in the past, with Iran Air Flight 655 by the United States in 1988 and KAL-7 by the Soviet Union in 1983 being two frequently cited examples. On 19 March 2014, News agency reporter Scott Mayerovitz of Associated Press described accidental shootdown as one of 7 leading, plausible theories, but added that there was no evidence that Flight 370 was brought down by a government entity. A Malaysian defense official, Akmal bin Haji Abdul Samad, said it was highly not possible that his country's air force had shot down the plane. According to the Financial Express, the Malaysian Air Force detected the plane on radar while it was in flight, but took no action because it was believed to be a friendly aircraft. In May 2014, author Nigel Cawthorne's book Flight MH370, The Mystery was published. Cawthorne alleged that after the jet was shot down during a U.S.-Thai Joint Strike Fighter jet training exercise, searchers intentionally were sent astray as part of a sophisticated cover-up. The book received considerable criticism, especially from the Australian, where it was characterized thus: Cawthorne undoes everybody's good work by retrieving every obsolete and discredited non-fact from the trash, slapping the whole lot between covers. Relatives of those aboard Flight 370 criticized the book as premature and insensitive. In a CNN interview on 24 April 2014, the Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak stated only that the radar tracked an aircraft which did a turn back, but they were not exactly sure whether it was MH370. What they were sure of was that the aircraft was not deemed to be hostile. On 22 December 2014, the former head of the claims were described by the source article as wild. Cyber attack. The hypothesis that a cyber attack may have been carried out on Flight 370 has been raised, primarily based on statements made by Sally Lee Vesley, a former scientific advisor to the UK government. Whether existing security on commercial flights is sufficient to prevent such an attack is also a matter of debate, although Boeing has dismissed the possibility. A spokeswoman for the company, Gayla Keller, said that they were confident in the robust protection of all flight-critical systems and inability for a hacker to gain access by either external or internal means on the 777 and all Boeing airplanes. While supporters of this theory have cited Hugo Tisso's app, which hacked into pilot training software, they stated that the software on an actual plane would be different from the software on which Tisso had tested his app. Vertical entry into the sea. Texas A&M University mathematics professor Gung Chen has argued that the plane may have entered the sea vertically. Any other angle of entry would have splintered the airplane to many pieces, which would have necessarily been found already. MH17 and Q8500 connections. Physically improbable theories. The theory that MH370 may have been consumed by a black hole received considerable attention when Don Lemon asked on CNN whether it was preposterous that it could have happened. Lemon was criticized for this by former U.S. Department of Transportation Inspector General Mary Schiavo, who, while appearing on CNN, said that a small black hole would suck in our entire universe, so we know it's not that. The Wirecom, which wasn't satisfied with Schiavo's answer, obtained detailed reasons why a black hole couldn't swallow a plane from Columbia University astronomy professor David J. Helfand and Peter Michelson, a professor of physics at Stanford University. It is possible that Schiavo was expressing herself humorously and did not expect to be taken literally. Another hypothesis is that a meteor might have struck the plane, however. The statistical probability for this is extremely low. In March 2018, around the 4th anniversary of Flight 370's disappearance, an individual received strange voicemails and texts with coordinates of a location in Indonesia somewhat close to where Flight 370 vanished. The voicemails in Morse code alluded to an alien abduction. This generated significant media attention, as the man who received the texts and voicemails also claimed that someone had showed up and taken pictures of his house, although this was never conclusively verified. The calls were placed using a VoIP service and were traced to 2 hotels in Port Blair, though the identity of the caller remains uncertain. Investigators dismissed the phone calls as most likely being a prank or hoax. Claims of responsibility. On 9 March 2014, members of the Chinese news media received an open letter that claimed to be from the leader of the Chinese Martyrs Brigade, a previously unknown group. The letter claimed that the loss of Flight 370 was in retaliation for the Chinese government's response to the knife attacks at Kunming Railway Station on 1 March 2014 and part of the wider separatist campaign. The letter also listed unspecified grievances against the Malaysian government. The letter's claim was dismissed as fraudulent based on its lack of detail regarding the fate of Flight 370 and the fact that the name Chinese Martyrs Brigade appeared inconsistent with Uyghur separatist groups which and